Hello. So before I continue, I just want to give a quick warning because I actually let OpenClaw edit this video. So if there's any weird stuff, weird transitions or pauses or like whatever you can imagine, then it's not my fault, it's OpenClaw's fault. And more on that experiment late in another video because I'll catch up on this and also talk about how to actually use OpenClaw for video editing. But in this episode, I'll just briefly discuss my initial impressions with OpenClaw because we did a house talk last week where me and my good friend Felix talked about OpenClaw and the possibilities. That was before I tried it myself. I announced that day that I was going to go buy a Mac Mini the same day, and I have the box right behind me, and I set it up, and now I've been using OpenClaw for around 1 to 2 weeks, 1.5 weeks now. And I was afraid that it was all hyped and it wouldn't be that amazing in real life, but I have to admit that this is actually at another level. Like my AI life, my digital life has been completely transformed the past 1.5 weeks, and I think there are a lot of reasons for that. But of course, OpenClaw is the infrastructure that puts all of this together. But on top of that, there has also been some new model releases like Sonnet 4.6, which is extremely good and also relatively cheap. And I've also been using Opus 4.6 a lot. So I think it's this combination of these insanely good models and OpenClaw that has just created this just perfect storm of advancement in AI that actually makes this agentic paradigm feel almost magical at some level. And for the people who don't know what OpenClaw is, it's basically an agent you install, like it's a software you install on your own computer that becomes your 24/7 agent. And many people install it on a Mac Mini because they want to separate it from their original, like their own systems, because it gets access to everything on your computer. It can read your emails, it can access any service you might be logged into or whatever credit card you've installed on your computer and so on. So naturally, it's a pretty good idea to separate it, at least in the beginning, until you get more comfortable. So that's why I have the Mac Mini, and the setup I'm running now with OpenClaw is basically a lot for development projects I have. And I think there's something really magical in being able to set up like a Telegram group. For instance, I communicate with my OpenClaw through Telegram. I set up a Telegram group with different topics and have a topic per project. So it means that every time I want to build something on a certain project, I just go to that project on the Telegram group, and I tell my agent to develop it, and it just does it. And of course, that's not all credits to OpenClaw, but it's because it's also just because of the fact that the new Anthropic models are so insanely good. I don't know. I've tried OpenClaw with a lot of different models at this point, and I think an advice I would give is to just not be cheap on models if AI is really a big part of your workflow. It doesn't mean you have to use the same model in all contexts. I use different models for different tasks, but some people suggest to just like be a bit cheap and use an inferior model, but in reality, it can actually sometimes drive the cost higher because you have to prompt it many times to do the same task. So an example, in the beginning, I was a bit scared by the API cost because it does cost a lot in API if you just run the most expensive models like Opus 4.6. So I decided to buy a Minimax subscription. Minimax is a Chinese model, which is pretty good, actually. It ranks quite highly. So I bought a subscription, and I used it for some days, and after a while you kind of forget how good the best models are, so you kind of just stick with what you have. And I would say that's quite dangerous because Minimax is not a bad model, but it certainly allows potential if you really want to do something serious. So I still use Minimax, and I like Minimax, but I use it for something like Heartbeat, which is this concept where we can say like every 30 minutes, OpenClaw will wake up and check if there's anything it needs to do, and then it'll use like a LLM to do this check. And I use Minimax 2.5 for that because it's a perfectly capable model for that task. But for development, I will still use right now Sonnet 4.6 as the main driver, and then when I really need to strategize a project, I'll use Opus 4.6 because it's also like it's just insane. Like once you try Opus, you'll kind of almost feel like it's magic, and I don't know what it is, but for the projects I've been working on, it's just so much more capable than like GPT 5.3 Codex, for instance, which is also a really capable model. But I just feel like the way Opus works, its thought process, when you actually look at the thinking it does, like how it orchestrates a project, how it in OpenClaw spawns different sub-agents to work on different parts of the task, how it orchestrates everything, how it receives all the work from the sub-agents and puts it all together and can essentially build up this whole structure, put up the whole database schema in a Supabase connected to OpenClaw, and then push it all to like, in my case, I've set up its own GitHub account for my agent specifically, and then how it can automatically initiate a deployment to Vercel. It also has its own Vercel account. So basically it means when I use these models, I can launch a website from my phone just by typing a prompt, and then like 5 to 10 minutes later, I have a Vercel URL, and it's all like committed to a new project on GitHub, and it even has its own backend on Supabase and so on. So what I mean is just like Opus is just so much more capable. This might change tomorrow because the development right now seems to be insanely fast, and so maybe tomorrow or next month there'll be a model from a Chinese provider or OpenAI or like who knows. I guess my point is that even though there are all these tutorials teaching you to save credits on OpenClaw, because it is obviously consuming a lot of API tokens, then it might not always be the best solution because you might actually be better off with a better model. That being said, I was really stressed as well, as I mentioned in the beginning, because I could just see I had to refill my Vercel Gateway account all the time. Vercel Gateway is like this pretty nice service from Vercel where you can choose between all kinds of AI models. We have all this, like you have all of the big AI models in one platform instead of paying like a lot of different providers. But I could see I had to top up that account all the time, and it was a bit stressful. So I figured out how to just buy a Claude account and connect the auth token from the Claude subscription directly to OpenClaw. Later on, they've come out and said that it's actually against their terms of use to use your regular account. Like I had just bought a max account from OpenClaw or like from Anthropic, and I think it's kind of sad that they do this because you are paying for the credits after all, but obviously they want you to use their own systems like Claude Code. But yeah, I mean, mine is still working, and like I don't know if they're gonna block it. So if you do buy it, of course, that's on like your own risk. And I mean, I hope they change the policy because I think when you buy a subscription, like they should allow you to use it for whatever you want. But let's see. At the same time, and that was around the time where OpenAI actually bought OpenClaw, they came out and said that you are welcome to use your like ChatGPT Plus subscriptions or Pro, whatever it's called. You're welcome to use that for OpenClaw. So I have that as well as a backup, as a failsafe. But as I mentioned, it's just not. It just doesn't feel as intelligent as the Anthropic models. And yeah, so right now I just hope that we can keep using the Anthropic account on OpenClaw. But yeah, let's see how it goes, because I use GPT 5.2 and GPT 5.3 Codex for some tasks on OpenClaw, because you can actually on Telegram change models. Like you just write /models on in the chat you have with your OpenClaw agent, and you can instantly switch between all the models you configured. So I do that, and I sometimes I do it especially that when I change between Sonnet and Opus, but sometimes I also switch to like a ChatGPT, like a OpenAI model, because they are of course very capable. It's just when I need to when I need an agent to orchestrate a bigger project and actually develop something consistently, it's like Opus and Sonnet have just been so extremely good. And so let's see how it goes with that, because it is again too stressful to use the credits directly. It goes really fast, and you don't always have an overview. With these subscriptions, like the Claude subscription and the OpenAI subscription, you get like a window of some hours where you can spend some credits. Like you can see a counter on the website. I think it's like a 5-hour period where you can spend some tokens within that 5-hour period, and then if you spend it all before the 5 hours is up, then you have to wait until the end of that window for your counter to reset. And then you also have a weekly limit, but at least you don't risk like just consuming your entire budget in a single hour because your OpenClaw goes crazy and does something way more enthusiastically than you had anticipated. So yeah, definitely consider getting a subscription so you don't have to worry so much about the cost, because you know it's a fixed cost. Although I will say I have had to upgrade quite a few times. I started on the regular Claude account, I upgraded to Max. Now I have like the 20x Max, so you get like 20x the usage of Pro. And for me, it is worth it because it's really like supercharging my work and my output. It's improving the quality of what I do. It's improving the speed of what I can work on way more projects simultaneously. I think another really big superpower you will notice when you start using OpenClaw is that what a freedom it is to develop from anywhere you can imagine. Like I develop and work from bed when I wake up, or before I go to sleep, or from the gym, or when I'm on the train, or like anywhere you can imagine. You can just develop, and it's just so liberating. And you can test it as well, because it will just send you a URL even for Tailscale, which is like exposing your private network on your OpenClaw machine through the internet using a VPN, so you can connect to that local network from anywhere in the world. So you can instantly check what it's doing. You can instantly just connect to the screen it's running on, so you can also visually see when it's like opening up websites and working on stuff. And yeah, I just think that it's really liberating that you don't have to like just sit with your laptop everywhere to do work. You can actually do substantial work. Like one day I might even launch a business from the plane or something. So that's just really, really exciting. Another thing I've noticed is the frequency of updates of OpenClaw. It's a really great developer community that Peter Steinberger has put together, or like people, of course, have just joined. So it's really great to see the support this open source project is getting. And it's also really great to see that it's staying open source even after OpenAI has bought OpenClaw, because OpenAI is not exactly known for being that open after all. So I hope it'll stay open source, because it's a really thriving community. And every other day there's a new update. And I think yesterday or the day before, a new one came as well. It's called, let me see, 2026 to 25. So basically the 25th of February, this update came. And then let's see if the OpenClaw editor that will edit this video is clever enough to put up this GitHub release note on the screen. So if you don't see anything, then it was a fail. So let's see. But essentially, I'm looking at it and from my iPad here, and there are a lot of changes that I actually noticed. So one of them I see is that there are improvements to the heartbeat mechanism. I've definitely received a lot more heartbeat messages. I also noticed that because it was a bit buggy earlier on, I probably instructed it to do too much in terms of heartbeat, because I couldn't understand why it wasn't working so consistently. So now I actually see the result of all the updates I've had it do to the heartbeat file. So now it's sending a lot of stuff randomly throughout the day. So I'll probably dial that down a bit, but at least it seems to be working way more consistently now with these heartbeats and actually doing what it's supposed to do when it's waking up. There are a lot of there are some improvements to the whole agent sub-agent relationship as well, like agents spawning sub-agents. And I've definitely been noticing that, because I already had it as a part of my developer agent instruction, or like soul, to always check, like, is this a big task that needs to be orchestrated into multiple smaller chunks. And if that's so, then it should spawn up sub-agents. And it hasn't been so consistent in doing that, but now every time I give it a brief for a bigger task, it'll actually say like, okay, I'm on it, I'm spawning up a sub-agent for this particular thing and for that. And I'm just basically creating this whole team of coders that will work on different subparts of your project, and then I will receive all the like outputs from the sub-agent and put it all together. So it's just really consistent in doing that, and I actually see now the process. And I also noticed that the agent, like the main agent, now checks in more regularly with the sub-agents and actually figure out like, okay, how is the process? Did it time out? Because sometimes the jobs do time out on sub-agents. Then it has to spawn it again and maybe reuse some of the work from the earlier sub-agent, but it seems to be way more on it beforehand. I mean, it's not perfect yet. I still do sometimes have to remind it that it's actually working on a task, but beforehand it was very constant. Like I always had to say like, hey, you were actually working on this project. Did you forget about that? And then it would be like, oh shit. I mean, it doesn't say shit, but like it's just like, oh, let me check on the sub-agent and see if they're doing any work. And then sometimes they would actually have been doing some work that the main agent wasn't notified of. And then, yeah, it catches up on it then, but it's just a bit annoying having to remind it. Like I would like to be able to get to the point where I can go to sleep and I know it just keeps working. And one thing I've been doing, and that was actually a pretty cool experiment, I started working on a website, actually one for Hause, and they will actually launch that quite soon, so that's really exciting. But in the beginning, there was like nothing, and then I asked OpenClaw to do one iteration per hour for the next 24 hours, where it would identify what would the next logical step be on this website. I presented the vision and what we wanted to achieve with the website. And then I just said, like, every hour you put a cron job, you wake up, then you analyze, okay, what could I be working on that would improve, like be a substantial improvement to this project, like just one iteration. And actually during those 24 hours, it actually consistently woke up every hour, built one feature. So after 24 hours, it was like, of course it wasn't done. I hadn't expected that, but it was a lot more complete and a lot more what I had in mind. Of course, also a few things that I had to roll back, but that's the cool thing about connecting it to GitHub. You can always just go back to a previous commit because it will commit each iteration. But this whole idea that you can just start something and then you can just see it improve on its own over time, it's just something magical about that. So by the end of those 24 hours, it was actually a complete functioning website with the different backend functions I wanted. It had created like a super base integration, and the front end looked really nice. I had instructed it to also research our brand using like whatever assets it could find online and then what it had already on the computer and so on. So it started gradually incorporating a lot of the visions, and I think if I had given it a bit more context initially or more guidance about the end goal, then it could probably have completed it. And there's also no one that says it has to have a 24-hour limit or it only has to be every hour. You could say it should do an iteration every half an hour for the next 5 days or something, and then you could probably have a really advanced project. After that, of course, you can keep an eye on it continuously, but it's just really funny to see how I can just keep working on the project on its own. And now, because this was earlier on before all these improvements with sub-agents, now it could probably be even better because it can orchestrate all this through sub-agents and not lose track of the context and so on. So there's huge potential that I'll do a video as well on this whole automatically iterating strategy where you kind of set and forget a project that you don't want to get your full attention right now because it's something you maybe want to develop for the future. And if you have the vision, it could actually be quite easy to just set up this agent that will just be on top of this project autonomously for a while until you have the capacity to like manually pick up on that project again and start directing and instructing it a bit more consistently. So yeah. As you see, if you see it, if you see the changelog on the screen, again, if OpenClaw is intelligent enough to show that, and if OpenClaw also is intelligent enough to scroll down through the page now, so you can see the features, you can see it's a lot of updates, and this has been consistent for all of the updates from OpenClaw for the past weeks. Like it's almost every other day there's an update, and obviously there's a big community now, and they also use agents to develop OpenClaw. I think OpenClaw was actually vibe coded initially, like the first version, and probably now it's a lot of advanced, I don't know, Opus agents or GPT agents like working constantly on OpenClaw. So it's also rapidly self-improving. So just think that's really amazing, and I'm just so excited to see the development of this. So I will stay, I will keep making videos about this and update you on the progress, both with my own setup, the own project I have running, and also just in the bigger space, like how all of this is converging with all the technologies, all the new models that's coming, and also how it can integrate with all these other models like video and voice and image, and like so many converging things. That's just really exciting to talk about. So stay tuned for more content like this, and thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions, or tell me about your OpenClaw setup. What's your experience been? I'm really excited and interested to hear about all your experiences. So please feel free to share below. And yeah, have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye. If this video inspired you, please like and subscribe. And have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.